Okay, so Mark has 13. Today we're doing 4-5. Homework is not on Schoology now, so please make sure and write it down. It's page 189, number 1 through 25 all. Actually, I made it through 27 all. Okay, Mark has 13 more than Bill. If together they have at most 85, Mark has $13 more than Bill. If together they have at most $85, what is the most money that Bill could have? Before we get started, I want to know, what is our unknown? Please define it. What represents the X? What is X? Yes. X is Bill's money. Okay. Then, how could we define Mark's money? Blake?
M equals B plus...
No, how do I adjust the expression for Mark's money?
No, X plus 13.
X plus 13. If I define it, Bill's money as X, then they say Mark is 13 more than Bill, X, right? So it'd be X plus 13. Okay? Now they're telling us together. So what do I have to do to that? Yep, Alex? X plus X plus 13. And then it says, if together they have at most $85, what symbol am I using, Charlie? But 85. So now I get 2x plus 13. You should be writing as I'm writing. Is 85. Subtract the 13. Subtract 13. And we end up with 2x is less than or equal to, that's 2, and that's 7. Divide by 2. And x is less than or equal to 36. With inequalities, the most important item is that you are paying attention to your ending and what the question is actually asking. So it says, if together they have at most $85, that would mean he has 36, because he's X. And then for Mark's money, we're doing 36 plus the 13, and that would make $49. Does 36 plus 49 equal to at most $85? That's 15. Carry the 1. It's an 8. That's correct. That is my check. Are there any questions? Now we solved that with one variable. You now have the ability to solve with two variables. So this isn't the only way. You could have potentially done something like this. I'm going to call M Mark's money, and B is for Bill's money. So I'm doing Mark has $13 more than Bill. B plus 13. Okay? And then the other equation would be M plus B is what? Less than or equal to 85. And then we could just substitute, and we end up back at the same place. B plus 13 plus B is less than or equal to 85. 2B plus 13 is less than or equal to 85. Subtract the 13. 2B is less than or equal to 72. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. B is less than or equal to 36. And there we have Bill is 36. 36 plus 13 is equal to 49. And so M is $49. Does that make sense? So we could have solved it with one variable or two. There's no wrong way or right way. Yes, Evan?
So, we'll be able to choose.
Yeah, you get to choose at this point, because you've now we've gone through. At this point in the book, they were only imagining that you could do it because this is the beginning of the book. They only assumed you could do it because you only had the ability at chapter 4 to deal with one variable, but you have more. We've gone through 6 chapters, so we went through systems. All right, let's go on to the next one, which are the sum of 3 consecutive integers is less than 60. So how do we set up our consecutive integer problems? Okay, Blake?
X plus 1 plus x plus 2.
No, don't you dare start this without defining your unknowns. So what do you need to do?
X equals the first consecutive integer.
Okay.
X plus 1 equals the second.
And if you're not doing this, Miss Sophia and I will not even look at this. It will be 0 points without setting it up. Am I clear? Because maybe in the beginning, you were beginners, but we've done this so many times and talked about it. You must define your unknowns. And what's the next one?
X plus 2 equals the third integer.
Okay, now what am I doing?
Now you put them together as x plus 1 plus 2.
And how would I show is less than 60?
The less than symbol 60.
Perfect. Okay, pause the recording and finish it up. All right, so what does it simplify to loud from the back of the room?
3x plus 3 is less than 60.
So I'm writing 3x plus 3 is less than 60. Now,
You subtract by 3 on both sides.
subtracting by 3 on both sides.
And then you get 3x is less than 60. And then
No, is less than 57.
less than 57. Then you divide by 3 on both sides. You get x less than 19.
Okay, so now we have 19. And the second integer would be? And the third integer would be?
21.
Agree? Yes. Isn't that it?
Oh, I thought it was the same.
Okay, Isaiah.
So this would like what it seems that we're treating the less than sign as an equal sign.
So what does that mean?
Like we would if we had x equals 19 we would treat it the same way.
But,
But why?
so what are you thinking? What should it be?
Anything below 19.
So what would that be? What's the greatest possible value below 19? The greatest possible value, and by the way, we're talking about integers, yes. 18. So this is not, in fact, correct. Because if it was an equal sign, it would be correct. You were right with your instinct. We have to pay attention to our answer. And our answer says that x is anything but, it's less than 19. And it also said it's an integer. An integer means it's a positive or negative whole number. So what is the integer the closest integer less than 19? Everybody? It's 18. It's 18. And the next one would be? And the next one would be 20. And that would be the greatest possible set. Because you can't go any higher than 18. So how do I write my consecutive integers? I'm going to remind you. I'm going to remind you. I'm going to remind you. So again, the way we write our consecutive integer answers is in the braces. And so it's 18, 19, and 20 are your consecutive integers. Is everybody clear on that? We have to make sense of that bottom and what they're talking about, integers. That tells me what number group. You have to learn these words. The vocabulary will determine if you will be successful in this next chapter. Can I erase this? And we can check it. When you add them up, 8 and 9 is 17. Carry the 1. It's 357. Now, if we had that 19, 20, 21, when you add them up, it's 10, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does that make sense of the answer? It says the sum of 3 consecutive integers is less than 60. Can't be. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's go to the test question. This is very typical, this question of like an SAT, placement exam. We see these all the time. When I'm doing grades, basically, what does the computer do? It takes a average. Okay, so Heather received an 80, a 75, and 86 on 3 algebra tests. What must her grades be on the next test if her average for the 4 tests is to be at least 82? So what is unknown? Define it. Charlie?
X equals the 4th test.
Okay, how do I set this up? How about, what do we do to find an average? Evan?
80 plus 75 plus 86 plus x divided by 4 is...
Dividing by 4 has to be what? Greater than or less than?
Is greater than or equal to 82.
That whole thing has to be greater than or 82 in order for me to get that B. Right away, I probably want to clear that 4 and multiply by 4. And so when I add these up, I get 241 plus x is greater than or equal to, this becomes 8, 328. I'm subtracting 241. And we get x is greater than or equal to, it's 7. It's 12 minus 4 is 8. And so do I get to use 87? Yeah, in this case, because it's equal to. We have greater than or equal to, so I can get an 87, an 88, an 89 in order for me to get the minimum score of 82% in the class. Does that make sense? Okay, can I move you on? Okay, the next one. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. We have 2 more problems. I'd quickly like for you to do the next one on your own. Go. Pause the recording. Do the next one on your own. Who can tell me how we define these? What are we calling them? How about Kaylee? What is the first integer?
X.
And it's the first even. Okay, what's the next one?
X plus 2.
Good. Third?
X plus 4.
And now what do I do?
X plus 2 plus X plus 4.
Is what?
Is less than or equal to plus 2.
Oops, yeah. Oh. So what did you get?
I got X.
Equals what?
X is less than or equal to 12.
So it's 12, it's 14, and then it would be 16. So reminding you, it's 12, comma 14, comma 16. Are there any questions there? Okay, one more question, and it is the most difficult, so let's kind of do this together. Find all sets of 4 consecutive odd whole numbers whose sum is less than 38. Okay, so step 1, we're doing 4 consecutive odd. What are we calling the first one?
X.
We'll call X the first odd. Okay, what are we calling the next one, Dayasha?
X plus 2.
Good.
X plus 4.
And the fourth?
X plus 6.
Good. So 4 consecutive. Okay, so I'm going to just add this up really quick. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 x's plus 10, 12, right? And then it says whose sum is less than 38. These less thans are really, or greater than, is where your problems are going to occur. I'm going to subtract 12. I get 4x is less than 26. Dividing by 4. And x is less than, it goes 6 times. I have a remainder of 2 over 4, so I'm going to say 6 5/10. So now make sense of the answer. What is the closest odd integer that you think would be the answer? Let's go with Charlie. 5. Did anybody choose 7? Because we have to follow the rule of this, which means I have to go to the closest odd integer less than 6.5. So that would be a 5, not a 7. And if that's 5, this would be 7, and this would be 9, and this would be 11. If you add them all up, 11 and 9 is 20, 32. Does that work? But that's not all, because they say find all sets. That's one set that adds up to less than 38. It didn't say the greatest possible value. Well, what if my first odd, another odd integer less than 6? Odd integer. 3. So 3, odd whole number. 3, and that would be 5, and that would be 7, and that would be 9. That's 16 plus 8 is 24. That works. What else?
Teachers, please excuse this interruption. This is Mrs. Green, and I have an announcement from the PTSA.
Okay.
Any student who
Should
did
I do
not
this?
receive their piece of cake order, the order will be in and ready for distribution on Monday.
How's this,
Once
guys?
again, if you did not receive your piece
Why?
of cake order,
Why?
it will be here on Monday.
Okay, so would that work? Why? Yes.
Whole numbers are 0 and positive numbers.
They give us a boundary. We want odd whole numbers. Our odd whole numbers start at 0. So I would never go to negative. That's not part of the whole number family. The boundary of whole numbers is 0. The last odd whole number is 1. So it's only these 3. Now here's how I'd write it. I'd put it into the braces, and I do 5, 7, 9, and 11. And then I do a semicolon. And then I'm going to do 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then I do another semicolon. And then I'm going to do 1, 3, 5, 7. And then I close my brace. Are there any questions? Yes.
What if it's like a really high number, like 1,000 for some reason?
Well, obviously we're not going to make you do that because we don't want you to sit here and burn your time. They're going to set you up with something. They're going to give you boundaries. Okay, you will always have boundaries. Okay, that's the lesson.